This video will show you how to change some things around in Microsoft Word to make your formatting for a novel a lot easier. Now, just to give you a little tidbit of what's coming up, my favorite part of this is learning to automatically number chapters so that when you take a chapter out or you add a chapter in, all of the rest of your chapter numbers aren't messed up. It's super, super cool. So just wait until you can see this. It's awesome. You may already have a manuscript, and if you do, at the end of the video, I'll show you how to use these tips to reformat the manuscript that you already have. All right, let's get started. I have a document here I'm calling Novel Formatting Sample. Going to save it frequently because Word's been messing up on me lately. And you may have some very specific formatting requirements for where you're submitting a novel to. Or you may just be an indie author like I am and you just want it to look the way you want it to look as you work on it. But figure out what you want your novel to look like if you're submitting it somewhere, what font do they want, things like that. Make sure you know all of that. We're going to start out by putting in page numbers. So I'm going to double click up here in the header. And if you want your page numbers in the footer, just go down here and click in the footer instead. But I want mine in the header. And I'm going to click page number up here, page number again. I want mine on the left. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to select it. I just double clicked there. And then I'm going to go to home. And I'm going to do this entire document in Times New Roman. So I'm going to change that to a Times New Roman page number. And there we go. Our page numbers will be automatically done. If you click back up here at header and footer, if you have a different first page, like a title page, you can click that and your page number won't show up until the second page, which is really nice. And it'll automatically start numbering at page 1. If you need to change any of the numbering, you can go to Format, Page Numbers. So there's different things you can do here. I'm going to click Close Header and Footer. All right, you also want to make sure that your margins are where you want them to be. Generally, people are going to want 1-inch margins. Mine are at 1 inch, but just in case they're not, you can go up here to these top menus, go to Format, Document, change your margins, and if you want to change them for all documents, you can click Default and change the margins for all your documents. Okay, now we get into the fun stuff, the formatting. All right, we've got a paragraph here that I just wrote. I didn't make you watch me write it with all my little typos. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to format this the way we want all the paragraphs in our novel pretty much to look. So let's say we're going to go ahead and just select the whole paragraph. Let's say that we want it to be Times New Roman. It's already 12-point font. You can change that if you need to. And lots of times you're going to probably want double spaced. So I'm going to click line and paragraph spacing here and change it to 2 for double spaced. And then you want the first line of your paragraph probably to be indented, and you don't want to use tab to indent the first line of your paragraph. If you do that, get out of that habit, set up your document to do it automatically. It will help once your document is formatted, most likely. So you're going to click up here where you've got this ruler, click the top little triangle, drag it to the 1/2 inch mark. We just dragged that, and that's going to indent the top line of our paragraph 1/2 inch. Now what we want is for our books to automatically be done with this formatting, with this text, this font, this spacing, this indentation. So what I'm going to do is we've got these things called styles in Microsoft Word. I'm going to click Styles pane over here at the right. Depending what version of Word you have, this may be in a different place. I'm using Word 365 for Mac. Styles pane, and we're going to say New Style. I'm going to call this style novel. Okay, these are just our normal novel paragraphs. And here's what's important. We don't want this to just work for this document. We want it to work for any document we want to use it in. So we're going to click down here where it says Add to Template. That's going to make it so that this style is available in your future documents as well. That's really important. So we're going to say OK. And we've got that style set up. Now, we also want a style for when we have the first paragraph in a chapter. Lots of times the first paragraph in a chapter is not indented. If you look at books, you'll notice that. And you might want to set up your document that way. You don't have to, but you might want to. So we're going to copy this paragraph. You can copy in lots of different ways. I'm going to click copy up here. And then we're going to go up to the top, or just the bottom, enter, and paste that paragraph in, okay? And I'm going to highlight this top paragraph, and I'm going to take out that indentation. I'm just going to drag this little triangle back to the beginning. Now we're going to make another new style. We're going to call it New Style, Paragraph 1. Okay, Paragraph 1, so the first paragraph in each chapter. We're going to add it to our template, but here's something else we want to do. Style for following paragraph. We're going to click that and click Novel. That's the style we just set up. So that means when we use this Paragraph 1 style and then we click Enter at the end of the paragraph, it'll automatically go back to the novel style that does indent every paragraph. We're going to click OK, and we've got that where we want it to be. Now we've got 2 styles. Look how easy that was. Our last style is the most exciting one and also takes a little bit longer to set up. We're going to go up to here, enter again, go up to here, just that space we just created, and we're going to go up here to Microsoft Word's just automatic styles that they always have set up. I'm going to click Heading 1. Heading 1 style. And we're going to make this Heading 1 look like we want it to look for chapters. We're not going to, don't type anything yet for chapter headings. So like where you say chapter 1 and maybe your chapter name. We're going to highlight that. First of all, we're going to go ahead and double space it, just like the rest of our stuff is double spaced. I'd like for it to be the same font as the rest of it, Times New Roman. I'd like for it to be centered. Now, if you're submitting this, that might be all you do. They might not want anything fancy, but personally, I like for it to be 16 point. If you want it to be the same as everything else, you're going to need to change it to 12 point. I like for it to be, oh, you definitely do want to do this. You want to change it to black, unless for some reason you want it to be this blue color that Microsoft Word automatically does. So you change it to black, you just click that. And then I like for mine to be bold. Again, you might not want bold, but I do. So I've got all the stuff that I want. And I'm going to click New Style one more time. New Style, we're going to call this Chapter Numbers. I forgot to tell you, make sure you click Add to Template. And I'll show you how these chapter numbers are going to work in a minute. We're going to say, OK. And here's where we get to set up our awesome automatic numbering. We go right here. So we've got our bullets and our numbers, and we go where it says multi-level list. And you're going to say define new list style. Define new list style. We are going to call this our chap num style. Okay? And I'll just call it chap number. Okay? Chap number. And we're going to say add to template. We always want to add this stuff to the template. And then we're going to go down where it says format. We're going to go to numbering. You can just click this little one on the end, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if it matters which one you click, really. I'm just going to click that one and click customize. Okay, yours will look something like this. It'll have a 1 because you're starting with number 1. And then what we're going to do, if you just use a 1 at the top of your chapter, then you don't need to do all this stuff that I'm about to do. But let's say you like yours to say chapter 1. I kind of like mine to say that. So I'm going to click before the 1 and write chapter. And let's say that you also use names for your chapters, not just numbers. And so you want to be able to put in a name. So I'm going to put a colon here so that I can put the name afterwards. And then I'm going to change a couple other things. We're going to click this little arrow down here. And it might say follow number with tab character. I only want the number followed by a space. Otherwise, there's going to be a big tab in between where it says chapter 1 and where it says the name of the chapter that you're going to enter later. So I just want it to be followed by a space. And then you want to link this level to the new chapter style that you just created. So we're going to click here where it says link level to style. We're going to link it to chapter numbers and click OK. And then we're going to click OK again. Remember it says add to template. OK. Look at that. Chapter 1. Now we can put the coolest ever styles in MS Word. That's our chapter name. Okay. Now we've got all of our styles set up where we want them to be. You can close this styles pane and check out what happens when we start a new chapter. Now, first of all, this is really important. Don't hit enter a whole bunch of times till you get to the next page, okay? Your spacing will be totally wacky and messed up. Instead, you want to put in a page break at the end of every chapter. There's different ways to do page breaks. I think the easiest way is through a keyboard shortcut. It's Command Enter or Return, or Control Enter or Return, depending whether you're on a Mac or a PC. If you don't like those keyboard shortcuts, you can go up here to Insert, Break, Page Break. All right, we've got a new chapter now, a new page, and all we have to do to start this chapter is click Chapter Numbers. The second chapter. Then we're going to click Enter. Oh, I forgot to do one thing. Hang on, let me show you. Go up here to Chapter Numbers, right click, because I forgot to tell you this. Click Modify. First, make sure it says Add to Template so that it saves these changes. And where it says Style for Following Paragraph, click Paragraph 1. Sorry, I forgot to show you that before, but we want the next paragraph after the chapter numbers to always be Paragraph 1. Okay, Chapter 2, the second chapter. Enter. Okay, here's our first here's our first paragraph, no indentation. So we're going to say, look, Ma, no indentation. Yay! We're going to save this. We're going to click Enter. And look, our second paragraph is indented, just like it's supposed to be. So cool. Automatic and easy. And we've got our second chapter written here, and we could go on to the third chapter. Now let me show you something really cool. I'm going to go ahead and start the third chapter. Call it Tres, okay? Click down here on the bottom left of your screen where it says page 3 of 3. And it's going to bring up this sidebar that shows you what each page looks like. What we want is what's called the document map. It's these 3 little lines here. And because we've got these chapter headings set up under a heading style, like we started with a Microsoft Word heading style, Microsoft knows that these are important places in your document. And so it's going to list them all here. And as you write, when you're like, oh man, I just remembered something I need to add to chapter 2, even if you've got 50 chapters, you can just click on chapter 2 and you're right there. I love this document map for navigating around your document. So there we go. We've got everything we need. We're going to save this and check this out. Because we added everything to the template, when we start a new document, we've got all of this stuff that we just added. Chapter 1. Okay, so for some reason, it's just not keeping this centering thing. I don't know why. I'm going to center it. Click up here, right click, say modify, say add to template, click centered. I don't know why it didn't save it last time, but we're going to go ahead and do that. And you may have to do that every time if your Word isn't working the way it's supposed to work like mine is. But everything else should be right. We've got our first chapter, our first paragraph, we've got our second paragraph, and everything else is set up the way that it's supposed to be set up so that you can use this for every single time that you are starting a new book. I hope this helps you as much as it helped me. Getting all this stuff automated is just one less thing to stress out about. Let's say you already have a manuscript. I've taken just portions of one of my manuscripts and put them into chapters. It's actually all the same text on each chapter. But I've set it up the way maybe it would be set up if you had just started a manuscript and haven't really done much formatting. The first thing you're going to need to do is you do need to go ahead and set up the styles like I already showed you how to do. Now you can do that in a new document like I showed you just to get them set up, kind of a dummy document that you're not actually using. Or you can take your current document and go ahead and use it to set up those styles. So to do that, the first thing I would do is I would highlight the second paragraph of my first chapter. I would get it all formatted the way I want to, like we talked about before. And then I would go into the Styles pane and click New Style, just like I showed you before. All right, I'm going to undo what I just did there. Then I would do the same thing with the first paragraph and set it up as our paragraph 1 style, like I showed you before. And then I would do the same with the heading. I would probably actually delete my heading of my first chapter and start over by getting all of the the chapter numbering and everything correct. So make sure that you've got all of these styles set up, and then you can use the styles to reformat the rest of your document. And I'll show you how to do that. One thing to be sure when you first start out is make sure that you have actual line breaks set up instead of, remember we talked about that you can't just press enter over and over until the next page. I'm sorry, not line breaks, page breaks. If your page breaks aren't in there, you need to go in first and put those in. Let me show you what that would look like. Let's say that to start this next chapter, I had just pressed enter several times. To change that, I would highlight all these enters and delete them. And then I would go Command Return, or as I showed you yesterday, you can go to Insert, Break, Page Break, and insert those page breaks. You are going to have to do that for every chapter, which is annoying, but you will be glad later when you don't have a whole bunch of weird spaces sitting around everywhere. Okay, the next thing you want to check is if you have been doing manual tabs throughout your manuscript, you need to see if your version of Word is keeping those in as tabs or if it has switched them to automatic indents. Let me show you what I mean. I did these tabs manually. So I'm going to click on this little thing that looks like a paragraph marker. In my version of Word, it's under Home. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to show me where all my spaces are and everything. In fact, let me make this bigger. See, each of these little blue dots is a space. We've got our paragraph markers, we've got all that stuff. Now check out what happens if I put a tab in here. That's a marker. It looks like a little arrow. But look, where I put tabs at the beginning of every paragraph, there's no arrow. And that's because in my version of Word, when I tab at the beginning of a paragraph, it actually changes it to an indent for me. So it kind of fixes my error. It says, I know that you want an indent, not a tab, so I don't need to change anything here. If yours doesn't change it and you have an arrow right here where I just have an indent, then you're going to need to get rid of those tabs. So let me show you how you would do that. First, you would select your entire manuscript. I do Command or Control A for that. There's different ways to select all, but I selected all of it. And then you would go to Find and Replace. So remember I showed you this little sidebar over here where once you have some headings, you're going to have the headings here. You can get in and out of the sidebar by clicking page numbers down here at the bottom left. One of the things the sidebar has is your search function. So I'm just going to click on Search, Find and Replace. And here's these little gears. I'm going to click Advanced Find and Replace. There are other ways to get to this. If you can't find it on your version of Word, Google it and you'll be able to find out how to get to Advanced Find and Replace. Advanced Find and Replace. We've got Find here. Let me get rid of this. That's something else we're going to be doing later. Replace. Okay, so we're going to click Replace. And then yours is probably going to look like this. You're going to click on this little down arrow, and it says Replace Special. You're going to click Special and then click Tab Character. And that is this little upward facing, you can call it a caret or an arrow, and the letter T. You can even just type this little upward facing arrow and T if you want to. That little arrow is found above your number 6 key. And then you would replace it with nothing. We don't want those tabs in there. And then you would click Replace All. Mine's going to say 0 replacements because, once again, my version of Word switched those tabs to indentations already. Oh, it says I had a selection. Yes, I want to search the rest of the document. Okay, we made 0 replacements. That's fine. If you had tabs in yours, then that would replace all your tabs with, it would just move those back over where none of your paragraphs would be indented, but that's okay because we're going to be fixing that. So I'm going to close this. The next thing that I would do if I were you, and you want to be careful, if you've got some fancy formatting in your document already, you might want to just keep it as is. And next time you start a document, start it properly. You could even just change your chapter headings and change nothing else, because the chapter headings, that's the most useful thing, is when your chapters are numbering themselves. But I'm going to show you, if you want to change everything, how to do it. Again, we're going to select all. I'm pressing Command A or Control A. And then we're going to go over here to where you had put novel, and we're just going to click our novel style. Novel style. Okay, see, it put everything in that style where I want where we've got the proper font, it's double spaced. Now there is something we want to get rid of. If you have extra spaces between your chapter title and the beginning of your chapter, now that we're double spaced and we're going to be changing how that chapter title looks, I personally don't want that extra space here. So here's how we can change that. And it's up to you whether you want to change it or not, but we're going to go back to Find and Replace. And we've got Advanced Find and Replace again. Click Replace. This time we're going to Special Paragraph. I'm sorry, not Paragraph Mark. That is it. Sorry, Paragraph Mark. Now we're actually looking for 2 paragraph marks in a row. So we can see that the paragraph mark is this little caret P. We're going to put in another one. And we're going to replace it with just 1 paragraph mark. And this is going to make it so you've only got, it's like you would be clicking enter once after your chapter title instead of clicking enter twice. So we're going to say little caret mark P, replace all. We made 5 replacements, and we're going to close this. And let me show you what that did here. See, it says Chapter 1, the coolest ever styles in MS Word, and we don't have an extra space there. Just be aware that if you do this anywhere else in your document that you might have extra spaces for any reason, where you pressed enter twice, it's going to take those out. So don't do that unless you're really okay with taking all of those out. All right. Next thing we're going to do is change all of our chapter headings. Now, unfortunately, you are going to need to do this individually with every chapter, but it's worth the time. If you are still editing and working on your document, you're probably going to want to go ahead and change your chapter headings so you've got that automatic numbering. If your document's done, you don't need to do this, but if you're still working on it, then you probably want to change it. So I'm going to click up here, and I'm going to click Chapter Number. Now, I've got it saying Chapter 1 twice because I had individually written Chapter 1. I'm going to take out that second Chapter 1. And there's an extra space here. I'm taking that out too. I'm just going to click Delete. And now I have my chapter here. Wonderful. Before I move on to the next chapter, I'm going to click this first paragraph, click Paragraph 1, and there we go. This first chapter looks just like it should. I can do the same thing on this chapter, chapter numbers, take out Chapter 2 and that extra space, delete, first paragraph, click Paragraph 1, awesome. Chapter 3, we're going to do the exact same thing. Delete Paragraph 1, and there we go. And we would go through our entire document and do all of that. Again, the reason you want to set this up is so that next time you start a document, you don't have to do all of these individually. You'll have these styles set up and it'll automatically switch between them. But sometimes it's nice to get your current document into the shape you want it to be, and that takes a little time, but it's worth it. I think that's it, guys. I hope that helps, and happy writing.